Our new sponsor, Better, is a fast-growing daily fantasy sports app. When you sign up using promo code PLAYBOOK in all caps, you receive a free $10 and a 100% deposit match up to $25.
Ready. Welcome to the NBA Hangout presented by Playbook Sports. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, is Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. Trade season is among us. I think last time we talked last week, we said trade season seems to be going kind of slow. Nothing's happened yet.
Yep.
And then right after that, as it always happens, a trade happened. So we'll get into that. We'll get into the trade. We'll get into Ja. Shams announcing that that Memphis is looking to trade Ja now. They're open to offers. We'll take a look at what some of those offers might look like, and at any other trade news that we might stumble upon, we will tackle that as well. And I think the AD stuff is kind of dead since you got his ligament injury, so that might be pushed back to the off season. Maybe. How was your week in the NBA?
It was okay. Trade season kicked off, which was fun. It made you start thinking about trades, go on the trade machine. But then all the Raptors got hurt, and I don't know, it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, that's how it is. Miami decided to beat the best team in the East in Detroit and then lose to the worst team in the East by a lot in Indiana. So perfectly mid, as always.
It's almost like they need to make a trade.
They do need to make a trade, and maybe they will be one of these teams that are in the trade discussions for things going on. So we can get right into it. We'll start with the breakdown of the trade. So after we did our podcast last week, Trae was traded for CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert. No picks, just players, that's it. What were your thoughts, initial reactions to when that trade went down?
I think, like anybody, initial reaction is a little bit of shock. Like, that's the return. And so you start to think about it, and you're like, well, is Trae like a negative asset? Is he really that bad? But we're talking about a 27-year-old point guard who tends to lead the entire league in assists. He's a 4-time All-Star. He's brought bad teams to the conference finals. He demands a certain play style, and the league is moving away from that. But is Trae worth nothing more than a salary dump and a decent role player? I guess he is, and that's it. Doesn't, you don't think like after. You gain a certain amount of data points along the way. And what we had gained based on the last couple CBAs was, a player like Trae would be worth a good young player, a salary match, and some picks, right? Yeah. At least one first round pick with like a handful of seconds at the very least is what you would have assumed. Okay, so you got salary match. You got a decent role player. You didn't get a good young player. You would have wanted something, I think, a little bit more, maybe like a Bilal Coulibaly, and some picks. But that's just not where the league is now under this CBA. This CBA, when it came in, everybody was kind of questioning, like, oh, what's it going to mean? It's a little different. We don't yet know what the knock-on effects of this CBA are going to be. And I think we're beginning to see them. And one of the things is that, contract value is the most valuable thing to have in your organization. You need to be outperforming your contracts to be a healthy organization. And so, Trae's a little overpaid. Probably not extremely overpaid, but a little overpaid. You'd want him closer to 25-30 million instead of 50, but he's still a good player. And he's still Trae Young, but that kind of player isn't going to demand that kind of return. And so I think right now around the league, there's every front office is going through an adjustment period at this moment and saying to themselves, who's going to be our problem contracts? Who do we need to get off early? And then there's going to be the front offices who say, is this all just a mirage? And can we exploit this situation? Yeah. So there's a reason that most front offices are made up of like lawyers and economists and just some of the smartest people you've ever seen. So for example, the Raptors GM Bobby Marks, if he didn't go to work for Ujiri and the Raptors, was going to join the CIA. So these are the kind of people who run your front office, and right now they are playing some high level chess way above all our heads, I think. And we're going to either see a crazy trade deadline that's going to involve a lot of movement, but maybe not a lot of movement of picks, or nothing. We're going to see just everybody waiting to see what else happens to gain more information before they do anything.
Yeah, I think that's right on it. Like, it was shocking to me too with the trade going down like it did. Even before, we could get into it too. It's like trade requesting Washington, having that as one of his preferred choices was certainly not what I was anticipating when anticipating where Trae would want to go. But Washington, I guess for the fact that he could have his freedom, he could play his style of basketball. He can also help this young group kind of get into their own, play a more winning style, which is weird to say because he kind of got traded for not being a winning player. But I think for where Washington is, he does help them and raise their floor. Also, too, it seemed like he had a lot of humility coming from this whole situation where like he saw how the team was performing without him. He likes those young guys. He wants to see them thrive. So he's taking a step back and being like, okay, maybe my fit isn't here anymore. Especially for the brand of basketball that I play, it's not going to really elevate these guys in the way that it did in previous years. So I think he took that all into account as well. And it's like, where does my abilities really impact the team and can really help them out and push them along further? I think Washington is one of those teams where he can do that. I was a bit skeptical at first because they have Trae over there. Yeah, the Trae over there, the rookie who I like as well, who plays that guard role. But if Trae and Trae can figure something out, then I think that could also be an explosive backcourt as well. Maybe similar to a CJ McCollum and Dame back in the day type of thing, where it's just two scoring guards. Defense, might be a little bit questionable, but at least you get the offensive side figured out. And it should certainly help Alex Sarr as well, help his development as a big man in this NBA. And on the Atlanta side, I thought this was great for them because I figured the defensive stuff for Trae was starting to really, because they're starting to lean into a defensive mindset. That seems to be the mentality that they want to play with all the versatility that they have with Dyson Daniels, Jalen Johnson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like that seems to be their core of trying to build out a defensive crew there. So Trae just didn't really fit that. And when we saw Trae being hurt, we saw Jalen Johnson take his real leap, and we got to see his playmaking and how good he is at that as well. And when Trae's there, he doesn't get to have those opportunities as much. So I think for Atlanta, they did the right thing. I would just question if they could have done this in the offseason before, if we already knew the answers to some of these questions before the season started. If they could have made this move in the offseason, maybe they get a little bit more.
Yeah, perhaps. I think there's that myth that, if we do it in the offseason, it's going to work out better, right? We're going to have more contract flexibility. So these guys that we would have traded at the deadline, we'll just trade them in the offseason. I don't know. The offseason move, I don't see it as any more valuable than a midseason move, as long as you can pull it off. I think the offseason just gives you a little bit more flexibility as far as the finances.
Right.
Yeah, thinking about Trae, pardon me, and thinking about the Washington situation, I wonder if Trae's ever had that many individual weapons to work with, right? In Trae Johnson, he's got a lights out shooter. In Bilal Coulibaly, he's got an athletic cutter. In Keyshawn George, he's got just this roaming movement big. In Alex Sarr, he's got one of the best young pick and pop big men he's probably ever going to play with, right? Like he's going to turn Alex Sarr into a roll machine, and it's going to be pretty incredible. So I think individually, this actually is going to help Trae Young's playmaking even more, because I think he's got I want to run this type of play, or I want to run that type of play, and he's got a player for everything he wants to do. But then I started thinking about like people in their career and people in different opportunities. And we tend to think about athletes and we tend to think about the NBA, especially as everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be a driver of winning, right? You know, they want to win the championship. They want to be remembered, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a lot of rules to play in the NBA. And one of them is, you know, that high-priced veteran who doesn't necessarily win anything, but grinds, you know, young players into their next step, brings weak, you know, organizations into their next step. And maybe Trae's never a guy that a winning organization goes out and gets, but maybe he's a guy that organization who's ready to get off the mat goes out and gets always. And he always makes a good amount of money. And I think that there's certainly a role and, you know, a high paying role in Trae Young's industry that he can fulfill and do so really, really well. Yeah, we all want to be the CEO of the business, but sometimes we're just the best operations manager that's out there. And that's all we do, you know. And for Trae Young, maybe he never wins a championship, and maybe he's never asked to win a championship, but he brings along young players and he brings along organizations and he brings along fan bases and he sells a lot of jerseys.
Yeah, that's important too. Like getting excited.
These are your organization. Yeah, these are all important things for basketball organizations. So I don't know. Maybe I'm justifying.
No, but you know, but I hear it on both ends. Like I do like it more and more as we look at it. And you know, the low cost to get him, like especially for Washington's perspective, is you gotta jump on that. My only reservation was like if they did it the season before or something like that, like if they could have opened things up, but you never know until you really get there. And I think they want to give this a try. They traded for KP in the offseason, so I think they want to see that kind of manifest and see where that was going, and before they pulled the plug on this. And they did. They gave it a fair shot. It wasn't working, pulled the plug. So I think they did the appropriate thing over there. And I think it kind of raised alarms for another player in Memphis with Ja Morant. Memphis coming out and saying that they're now listening to offers for Ja Morant. They're looking for young players and picks, of course. One, do you think they're going to get that? Two, what teams do you think make sense for Ja Morant?
So I think Ja Morant, even though he's incredibly close on age and experience to Trae Young, I harbor more hope that a change in scenery would be really good for Ja Morant. And, you know, if he goes to a situation with like strong culture or strong vets, it could be really, really good for Ja Morant, right? It could just be that moment where he's a little bit older, getting a little bit humbled, right? We go through it many times in our lives. We will be humbled. And I think it turns us into better people. And for Ja Morant, I feel like he's a little bit of that. You know, it's Vince wanting out of Toronto, going to Brooklyn and, well, New Jersey at the time. And, you know, he matured a lot in that moment. And it's hard to admit as a Raptors fan because you wanted that player on the Raptors. But, you know, the individual matured. And I think Ja is going to go through that. I don't think he'll ever be a great outside shooter. But I think there's still a little bit more athleticism in his game. Like, I think he's been dogging it this year.
Yeah.
I think he gets you something close to Trae, but maybe with a pick. But I don't think he's worth anything more than that. If Trae's worth a salary dump and a modest role player, Ja's worth probably the same plus 10, 15%.
Yeah, I kind of see it too that way. But I think the interesting thing with both these situations is that with Trae, it felt like it was more of a, we know what he is as a player. This is the same player going through and through. Ja had a significant step back going into the season. Like, he has been one of the least efficient jump shooters in the league this year, or if not the worst jump shooter in the league this year. His athleticism doesn't seem the same. It comes in spurts. He had 40 points the other week, but then he's vanished the next couple games. So he's very inconsistent. But that again could play into the tune of he's just not into the mindset of playing for his organization right now. His mind's not all the way there. He needs to change the scenery, stuff like that. So the hope is that if you trade for Ja, that you're going to get a guy who's now refocused and remotivated to show that he is one of the elite players in this league and can still put in performances like that on a consistent basis. I fear that teams are not going to match that level with in terms of what they're going to offer him. I don't think teams are going to offer much more than what Trae got because they know what Trae is. You don't know what Ja is. I think at this point it's going to look like salaries and maybe, like you said, maybe a pick. I don't know if you're getting that young player. I have a few trades up here that they get some young players, but I don't know if it's the way that they're thinking that they're going to get the young players or if it's the caliber of young players that they're going to get. Yeah. So the teams that were mentioned and like that reportedly have interest in getting a Ja Morant were Minnesota, Sacramento, the Bucks, and the Heat. Always the Heat.
Always the Heat. It's the culture. Yeah, it's because
everybody looks at Ja.
Yeah, everybody looks at Ja and goes, "Oh, if the Heat could get him, they could fix him." But right now, like, he doesn't want to play the style the Heat play. It would just be a problem. But
I'm actually way more open for the Heat thing now than I was at the beginning of the year, and I feel like some of that stylistic stuff, was more to do with like the rotations that Ja was going through at that time too. It was a play style, and on top of that, he was playing short minutes, short bursts. Like they're doing like this hockey type of substitutions with the lineups and stuff during that time point. So he couldn't really get into the flow of how he wanted to play. And you add the fact that he's not getting his pick and rolls, I think he just made him miserable. So maybe if only half of those things are true, he's a little different in a new situation. And I think the Heat are going to start leaning more pick and roll heavy anyway, since Tyler's coming back. Tyler kind of needs a pick and roll. Tyler is involved in one of these trades. So we'll talk about the Heat. We'll talk about all these. We'll talk about all these. We'll talk about all these teams. But let's start with Minnesota, who has reported interest in them, but has also said that they're not as interested in him as they once were as well. And I see why from their standpoint. When I was trying to piece together a trade for a Ja Morant, trying to match his salary basically includes one of Rudy Gobert or Julius Randle. Rudy has had a great year this year, still their anchor on defense, has done a little bit more on their offensive end this year. He's been playing well. I don't think they're looking to really move a guy like that. Julius Randle was maybe the guy that you're looking to move, but even with that, him and Ant-Man have good chemistry together. They play well together. I don't know if you really want to break that up either to bring in a Ja, which you're uncertain about. If you were certain about Ja, then yes, I would say go for it. But when you're uncertain about what level he can reach, Julius Randle's better than Ja as it is right now. So I don't know if you're ready to really give away that type of player. So the trade I had drafted up was Randle Conley for Ja. That's it. No picks, no nothing. That was it. I don't know if the Grizzlies would be interested in that. You get some vets back. You get Conley back to help out with some of these young guys. Be that guy in the locker room. He was a Grizzly before. That is where he got his prominent role. So maybe that's good for Conley. For Randle, he might just be in the way of some of the young guys. So I'm not too sure how much the Grizzlies would be interested in this type of trade.
Yeah, it would involve. Well, I mean, with Edie on and off the court with his foot injury, Jaren Jackson Jr. playing some center wouldn't be the worst thing. I know Jaren doesn't like to play center, just like AD never liked to play center, but it's the role they should be playing. So it'd be okay. It would be okay because otherwise you got to slip Randall down to the small forward, which just makes you enormous, right? Could you imagine Zach Edey, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Julius Randle as your front court? You would be enormous. It would be interesting. And the reason you're doing it is much of the reasons that like Atlanta moved Trae, which is we don't want to be on this contract long term, and this particular mix of players just isn't working. So we got to try some stuff.
We got to switch it up.
Which based on we're not in Tennessee, but based on what we hear about Memphis, like, yeah, sounds like they'd be kind of amenable to that, right? And yeah, then you get Ja with Ant, and you get that kind of, you finally get to see what Anthony Edwards with like a premier point guard would
I
look like.
just want that so
Y-
badly.
Yeah, it would be a crazy backcourt, and I'd be on board. And then you still keep Rudy, who's gonna anchor your defense. You got Naz Reid, who's gonna step up and play power forward, and you still have McDaniels. It's actually it's a really good really good lineup.
Yeah, I think with for Minnesota, you just gotta talk to Ant and be like, look, I know he's your guy. I know you guys like playing together, but we have a path forward here where we could really make some damage work if Ja is the guy that, if you can get Ja to be the guy that he was before, then I think we could make a serious run here with this type of playmaking. And yeah, on the Memphis side, yeah, you move, you can do. Randall's played some 3 before, so he could do that. 3, 4, and 5, you have Randall, JJJ, and Edie as your super big lineup. Edie seems to be hurt a lot anyway, so they're gonna have to interchange the center position anyways. And then you get some veteran guys who can just be around the young group to help them grow in a more positive manner. Another team that I have on this list is the Sacramento Kings. So their trade is kind of uninspiring, but you get picks. You can get a pick back. So I have DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, a first and a second for Ja Morant.
So far, if I'm Memphis, that's probably more it's probably more up my alley, right? Like I get a lot of scoring. I get guys. So this is the other side of where the CBA is, which is the Sacramento Kings example, which is the idea that like, oh, I'll take on this player with a bad contract, rehabilitate him, and trade him later. Sacramento hasn't been able to trade these guys later, right?
Yeah, that's been the issue. Yeah.
So if anything, like this is kind of bad for Sacramento because they're moving more picks out to get a contract in that they're going to try and rehabilitate. So I think Sacramento might be the most like sad organization in basketball right now, which is
a shame.
Really a
They're
bummer.
laying the beam. They're laying the beam 2 years ago.
Would they light it 8 times this year? It's not been very bright in Sacramento. But I think based on old thinking, absolutely, that's of the 2 presented so far, that's the one I want to go for. Based on new thinking, I might actually lean towards that
Memphis, the
Minnesota one. Yeah.
And I think Sacramento's also reported that they're kind of pulling back on the Ja stuff too. Like they're not as into it as they once were as well. Like they're kind of, I think they
got to do it the old school way. Just slowly build it back up.
Yeah. They've done a lot. They've done a lot in the last couple of years, and it might be time for them to just slow play some things. Next team I have here is the Bucks, who would be making a last-ditch effort to kind of keep Giannis around and presenting him with what could potentially be a superstar or an all-star at the minimum in Ja Morant. So their trade would be Ja for Kyle, Bobby Portis, and their only first that they can trade.
Kuzma, Portis, and a first for Ja.
The other option would be Turner, but Turner and Jay, that doesn't really make any sense together. They're the same guy, just in different.
Yeah. Well, it just it starts to makes Memphis a little bit messy to the point where it's like, okay, if you're going to do this one, you kind of have to do Jaren Jackson trade as well.
Yeah, if you're to do it Turner, yeah.
Yeah, so it's I see why the Bucks would want to do this one, right? Absolutely anything to hold on to Giannis. And should Giannis still go, he's going to bring you back King's ransom. Like he's one of the players that you would actually pay out a lot for, right? Like because he wildly overperforms his contract. So he's going to bring you back a rebuilding amount of assets. Having Ja already on board gives you somebody to sell jerseys, and in Milwaukee, that's important. But if you are the Milwaukee Bucks without Giannis, what Ja Morant are you getting? right? Like, are you going to get a mature Ja Morant, or are you going to get a Ja Morant who sees himself in another non-winning situation in a small market
and it's frustrating
and just wants out, right? So I think it makes the most sense for Milwaukee to make this trade outside of the personalities involved. I think it's the most risky trade, personality wise.
For them, it is. But I think for them at this point, they have nothing to lose. Giannis is out the door. Giannis is either out the door. He hasn't signed that extension yet. He keeps saying he's not going to request a trade, but he also hasn't signed anything. So it's hard to gauge where he might be going with his situation there. Yeah, and I think also from the Milwaukee's perspective, you get in. You're just gonna lock in. You're just gonna lock in Giannis. I think Giannis is gonna be like, okay, we're trying to still win. We're trying to do this thing again.
Yeah.
Like they've done things like this in the past where Dame was wanted Miami for the whole offseason, and they just snuck themselves in there to get in Dame. They did the same thing with Drew Holiday before that. Like he was going to go to other places, and then they just snuck themselves into the conversation and got Drew Holiday. So they're used to doing this type of thing where like a guy is disgruntled and is very cheap and affordable to their price. They just tend to sneak in and find a way into these conversations. So and again, in all those situations, it was points in time where Giannis has been frustrated with the organization and has almost requested trades. So this is like on par for the course for something that they would do in this type of situation. But I don't know if you want to give up. I think their depth would be severely lacking. Like you would have no more forward depth once you give up Bobby Portis. I don't know what other moves you can make after this move to kind of recoup some of that stuff. I don't know. You don't even have a bunch of seconds or anything left to kind of fill out that bench. So it'll be a very dire, bare bones team that you have, and you're relying on a guy who isn't healthy, hasn't played 6 games straight since 2023, to kind of be there all the time and be reliable. It's a big gamble for them, but a gamble that I think they kind of have to take in this stage of their Giannis's career.
Yeah, I'm on board with that one. Yeah, I don't know. The Bucks are in a bad spot. I think
they're in a terrible spot. They just got Trae Young.
Yeah, they've walked themselves to that point. They're like, we are at the Trae Giannis portion of the choose your own adventure book.
Yeah, they're just trying to figure out who's going to be the bad guy in that situation.
That's not going to be Giannis.
Yeah. It's just not going to be Giannis. He's going to do everything in his power to not make it him. Yeah. And I guess the final team here is the Heat. So that's been rumored. That's been rumored quite a bit. Ja Morant and the Heat wanting each other. So I have 2 trades here, 2 very different trades that they can formulate here. So I have one with Terry Rozier's basically his expiring contract, Simone Fontecchi's expiring contract, and a first round pick for Ja Morant. You clear the books if you're Memphis. You get a first round pick. You don't get your young player. You don't get any compliment players, but allows your guys who are already there to continue to grow for the rest of the year. You can get a good draft pick this year and continue your rebuild. That's the first one. We could talk on that one, and I have a second one after that.
Yeah, which, it really depends on Memphis's goals. Like, obviously, that was a goal of Atlanta's was to just clear the books, have nice, clear cap space, and be able to use the flexibility that comes with that. If that's a goal of Memphis, then right on. But these are 2 organizations in very different positions. Like, Atlanta knows what they are, who they want to be, and they're now pushing towards that. Memphis is an organization that climbed the mountain only to realize that they're not good enough. And now they don't know what to do, right? Do we climb back down? Do we try to build a tower? What do we do? So it really kind of depends on the goals. I think some of these Ja trades are precursors to full breakdowns, right? Like, you've already traded, Bane. If you're going to trade Ja, it just makes sense to trade Jaren Jackson Jr.
Yeah,
like,
that's probably the next.
You're really not going to build a winner in the next 2 years, which is kind of what you would hold on to a player who's got like all defensive capability for. But I don't know. Yeah, so that one definitely feels like Memphis is signaling a teardown. And they're okay with just recouping a pick because they're hard to get now, and just letting it ride, right? Because the other thing is it's a Miami pick, like back end of the lottery, best you're gonna do.
Yeah, the issue with
right?
Miami picks is they're always trying to compete, even when they shouldn't. They're gonna try. So that doesn't. You're looking at a pick that's probably at best at a 12 to 20 type situation there. Especially if they're forming this team where you still have Ja, Norm, Hero on Bam, Kel all together. Like none of those guys are gone, so they'll still be
Wiggins.
Still be there.
Hawkes. So there's a lot still going on that
so that's a
team.
lot still going on over there. Which brings me to my second trade here, which is because I think for Miami, I think they do need to do more of a consolidation of what they have. I think the Tyler Hero thing has kind of come to a head too. He's due for an extension. They haven't extended him as yet. So there's at that point you kind of have to make, are you trading him? Like what's your situation with him? You play better without him right now. So what is your deal with Tyler Hero? So my other proposal would be a Tyler swap with Simone Fontecchio to fill out the cap salary.
Okay, so then that's a little different, especially if you're Memphis. So that signals like we're reshuffling, we're not rebuilding. We believe more in the personality stability of a Tyler Hero. He's less athletic, he's less a playmaker, but he's probably a better shooter. He can still get his offense off. He's a competitor. I think that's pretty unquestioned. Like Tyler Hero tries despite his limitations. So that's one of those situations where it's two players maybe not living up to their contracts. Let's see if new situations help, right?
Yeah.
Let's not be super precious about our players. Like, oh, we drafted this guy, he's our guy. These are the skill sets this player has. These are the skill sets this other player has. If we swap them, does it make more sense? Does our souffle rise? With these new ingredients. So
I think for the Heat, they gotta start looking at things like this. Like you can, if you're able to move a Hero for a Morant and just try something new, you just gotta try something new right now. Moves Davion back to the bench, which is more comfortable, I think, for him. He's done a tremendous job as being a starting point guard this year, but I think naturally he's still a guy you want off the bench to bring that defensive intensity. It allows Weir to be more of the guy he's supposed to be. It allows Bam to be, but Bam struggled this year. He's been hurt, but I think also to do to the fact of the change of the offense, I think these things help those two guys get easier and easier shots when you have a guy like Ja relentlessly attacking the basket and just opening up things for other people. That's if he is committed to that. They say the Heat culture can fix these things. It would be a true test if they can fix Ja.
So, looking at the culture side, right? Like if Milwaukee's the worst place to send Ja, like Minnesota's probably the best winning situation, and he'd be playing alongside the biggest personality. Now the problem is Ant isn't a veteran, right? Ant and Ja are the same age, right? They're just both big personality guys.
Yeah.
So sometimes one guy takes a step back and is like, okay, with being the number two. Sometimes it's a problem, right?
Yeah, and I think with the Heat too, Ja could be the face. Bam is going to be the culture bearer. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the leader of the team. He's going to be that guy. But Ja would be allowed to be the face of the organization. They'll put him on all the jerseys, all the promos. It'll be Ja. They've done it with Norm this year. They'll do it. They'll do it for Ja. And Bam will have no issues with that, like none whatsoever, as long as they're winning games.
Which is really good, because if you think about the Heat and you think about Ja, you're putting him into the organization that's won the most, right? Like it's the most decorated organization. It certainly has the adults in the room. It is one of the few organizations where the GM and the coach matter more than the players, regardless of who the players are. And it is an organization known for asking the most out of its players and getting that, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and it's in Miami, right? Like it's in a very desirable place to live. It's in a big market. Like Miami's not a small market. So it has all those other things that are important to, you know, a young wealthy man who's on top of the world, right? Like you want to have, you know, a good world outside your job as well. And Tennessee is supposed to be wonderful, especially Memphis and Tennessee, but it's not Miami, right? And Miami is not New York. And, you know, LA is not New York, right? And these are the trifecta of the big ones that you want to be in, though. You want to be in Miami, New York, or LA. And so I don't know. Like, it's still to me like Ja ending up in Miami for like nothing just seems like the way it should be. Also, like we were talking last week, I was saying like Miami just they need a star again, and they need to be just dragged into relevance again so that they can have a little bit of the flowers that go along with being a well-run organization. Because right now they're out of the national conversation, and it's a little unfair because I think they're overperforming their personnel and where they should be in the NBA right now. Like, I kind of think they should be like closer to a Utah than you know, like than a Philadelphia
based on their talent on their team. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that's how it goes for the Heat. But I think all those are valid points. They do need to start in the organization. They do need these type of things. I think they should take the chance with Ja. Their season isn't much anyways this year. You're gonna end up in the play-in or just out of the play-in and just, you know, in that 3-6 slot, maybe second round at the very, very, very best. And I'm having a hard time seeing that these days. I think you just do this to do this. Giannis isn't happening this offseason. Giannis isn't happening mid-season. Like that is just not happening. He's not gonna force his way. The organization isn't gonna do it for them. They're gonna try everything in their power to keep him there. So move on from that thinking and just go to the next available distressed star. I think if you are the Heat.
Well, and let's be honest. Let's be honest about the Heat for a second and Giannis. If Giannis is available, the Heat don't have enough to win the auction, if you will, right? There's just too many other teams that could use Giannis that can pony up more. The only way he's coming to the Heat is by demanding a trade to the Heat, in which case you still have enough. Right? Yeah.
We're good. Just quickly before we head out, Raptors, yeah or nay? Do you think they are going to enter this fold as something cheap? The cheapest one I have is Quickly and Grady to Memphis.
I think the Raptors certainly entertain that because of what I was saying earlier. You want value contracts, and I think Quickly is just a little overpaid for what he gives you. So that's a contract that you'd be looking to move off of, right? And maybe you just see more value in a Ja Morant, right? Plus Grady Dick has to get paid soon, and you have to really consider whether or not you want to give him the extension. So really comes down to contract values in the long term.
Yeah, no, 100%. I could see that going that way. Raptors have been kind of like peeping around all these little superstar trades to see if they can get one for cheap. So I think they would see what's out there. If it's not at their price, then they just back out immediately. But I think that will do it for this episode of the NBA Hangout. You can follow us at the NBA Hangout on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me at BJAY93_. You can follow Dave here whenever we record. Sometimes it's every week, sometimes it's not, but we'll be here. Thank y'all for hanging out with us. Peace.